Hello guys, it's time for some game run, hopefully something short, because I just felt like I have so many different ideas I sometimes run, then I say, hey, maybe I should make a video about it, and then I forget, because I have to be on the right mood, and I thought I would talk a bit about this. Now, I was watching a lot of Jonathan Blow videos, and it's just funny. I agree with a lot of things. I don't agree with others, but there is something about when he's saying things. You're like, I wonder what Jonathan Blow is going to say. And this game run has nothing to do with this video, and it has nothing to do with Elden Ring. It just there were just some points. Actually, he's playing Elden Ring badly, and he seems kinda bored, and it's like, come on, dude. Like his criticism are, I don't know, probably doesn't have the motivation to play the game, but it doesn't matter. There was a criticism that was very valid. There is something I do in a lot of Dark Souls game I play now, and that criticism was there.
Instead, I see the cast of Monty Python and the Holy Grail, worms coming out of the ground,
The cast of Monty Python. This is not a joke.
and like skeleton dudes,
Skeleton. Yes. This is not a joke. It's here and it's valid.
and a lot of annoying multiplayer comments that don't mean anything. Like it's just
Yeah, that's it. Multiplayer comments. And my rant has to do about single player versus multiplayer, but something I noticed in the culture, and it's not new. Maybe I noticed it a few years ago or even before. So here, for example, is I'm still playing this one, and I stopped for a while. For some reason, it didn't drag me in, but that's not the point. The point is, let me see if I can. No. Yeah, left, right. Network? There. Play offline. I always have it offline. In every Dark Souls, I turn it offline. And in some of the Dark Souls series, was it 1, was it 2, I don't remember, there wasn't such an option. Maybe 1 and 2. And you had to either disconnect your network or, but then you wouldn't be able to run Steam. Or set some firewall options or some network options on Windows. I found them somewhere. I searched on the internet to disable the network, to block the network, especially for Dark Souls executable. But hopefully here and on Elden Ring also, I play offline. But now I'm going to put online. And maybe I have to quit and do that. And we see what happens. I don't know if the music is a bit loud. I don't know if I'm here. So that's the first part of the roundabout single player multiplayer. And that's just an example because I'm gonna say something. It's not a thing making my point. My point is not single player versus multiplayer. It's just something related to the. Okay, now it went to the. I'm playing online. I hope I'm not invaded. I don't know if I make the point. When I get to the level, I don't know if I will make the point. Because I barely play it online. And it's not about the invasions from other players. I don't know if I will find the thing that I'm trying to show. Damn, I just don't know. I am online. Is there... And maybe I realized that I didn't have to be offline. But I would still prefer it. Ah, okay. There it is. Is it that? Restrict the visibility of your summon sign in enemy. But that's not... Subtitles on. For some reason, actually no reason. Jonathan Bloom was arguing, why is this on? It has to be off, it doesn't make sense. Yeah, because he's English speaking. And I'm English speaking, I can understand, but it helps if you missed some character spoke and you missed there were other things happening in the screen. I might have to go outside to check it. So this is going to be longer. I forgot how to get... Do I get outside from here? Where is the... I'm always confused here. Oh, there is a message here. Now this might be... Okay. Ah, you see some messages, but they're very few. Oh, why am I... Ah, I know. Rear ahead. What? See, there are messages, but those are not very... Time for joy. There are messages. Time for finger. Some sexual thing is the finger. Now, you can see that. These are players that died. Were they fighting an invader? I don't know. No, those are very few, but... You know... Okay, I need to find the exit. It's not here. I'm always lost in this game. When I want to go to the exit from this. The way this is designed... Ah, is it there? No. If I want to go to the exit from this Nexus... I don't know if it's called Nexus. Yeah, and for some reason you wait here. Okay, I don't see the thing I'm looking. In this game, for some reason, if you want to go out, you have to wait here. Maybe it's loading there. And now you're out. Okay, maybe I don't see the thing I was talking about. I have to go in the beginning. Yeah, I'm too powerful for this. Okay, I need to kill those though. I'm pretty strong at this point with those basic enemies. Here is a message. Open menu. Why? I got some cleric thing. Okay, maybe I'm not making the point because I have to go. I do remember, maybe it depends on the multiplayer. Hope I'm not getting invaded. I have to go to the beginning or a later map. So I'm making this video longer. I do remember it was in the beginning. You have blood. Oh no, message. While dashing, jump. While dashing, jump. That could be a developer message though. Okay, that's not a good example. Okay, this is the tutorial. Okay, you know what? Go. I just remember. I'm not making a point. And the thing is. Try this. I am in multiplayer, am I not? Ah, I should have seen the Elden Ring thing. I'm gonna search for a video. Because I do remember you will start in an area and you will see a sea of messages. Several messages. Unless I disable it. Unless it's that option. I don't see them. No, this can't be. I don't see the messages. I was starting a game in multiplayer, and that's in all Dark Souls, and you could see messages here and there, and bloodstains of people who have died. And I would be like, what are all that shit? You see some bloodstain here. So you can see now how a player has died, let's say. I don't remember a lot of messages. I do remember a lot of messages. So here is a message. Visions of secret passage, but be wary of beggar. Yeah, they can leave stuff like that. It's an interesting feature. Unfortunately, I cannot... Because I do remember when I enabled the... Or when I started with online, and it wasn't just in the tutorial, it was everywhere. You would see message here, message there, bloodstain here, bloodstain there. It wasn't so rare. It was a mess and it was killing immersion. And I failed to see it. Anyway, guys can't find it. I mean, you have seen a few messages. I just remember that when I started playing and it was online, I'm installing Elden Ring so that I can check later in this one. If you were to play online, you could see sometimes a lot of messages down and bloodstains also. Which, okay, you might say it's an interesting thing. Sometimes people do jokes, like this, for example. Yeah, things like that, you know. It's funny, but I want to be immersed in the world. I want to be immersed in this world. I don't want messages upon messages upon messages. And I guess you are given the option to disable. But for Dark Souls 1 and 2, I had to disable online from. There wasn't an option. I have to block the network for the executable of the game. It's crazy. And that's what he means, that when you go into multiplayer in this game, and it might be crazy because, okay, here it is. The Dark Souls series, and I guess Elden Ring and others, even Demon Souls and all these kinds of games, their multiplayer, it wasn't just you are together with your friend and you go to fight stuff. You could play alone but connected to the world, and it was a world where it will play like the single game, but it had interesting from a multiplayer perspective. It had some interesting mechanics. You could be invaded at certain places, or you in Dark Souls 1, if you were if you died, if the monsters kill you and you are a hollow, and then you use the humanities to go back to your normal state, there was such kind of, then you couldn't be attacked, and then you could be attacked. And in Dark Souls 2, my brother said there was a place that was full of invaders. So these were players invading you, teleporting at your position while you were fighting stuff, okay? And you are out of Estus flasks for healing, and you barely made it over a boss or some other fight, and then an asshole appears and kills you. You know, and maybe that was the interesting thing of the multiplayer, if you want to play it like that. And I think my brother said in Dark Souls 2 they make the invaders very annoying and very hard all the time. And but there was a specific place. There was a place in the game. They merged the single player with the multiplayer. There was some evil witch which summoned the multiplayer players, or summoned you in their world. So there were some interesting gameplay mechanics. So it's not an easy sell to tell you. I played. Where is my home? I played most of the Dark Souls stuff. I played Dark Souls 1, Dark Souls 2, I play Dark Souls 3 now. The two Dark Souls 2. What are you doing? Maybe Steam does access Jonathan Blood things. And even Elden Ring. And in all the games, I never experienced the online. Never. It means, look, I have 600 hours replaying this game. Do you understand? And I always played offline, which for some people is like, are you crazy? It's like you played Call of Duty. You played the campaign. They have some very basic single player campaign mode that you can finish in few hours as for those games. But the core of the game is the multiplayer. You never. Actually, I played Borderlands. 700 hours. I replayed it and I replayed. I played Borderlands 3 very little. Oh, I didn't even. Okay, I played it in Epic Store at the time. And they bought it again here to play it. I played those. No, those games are great single player experience. But I hear a lot of people say, if you don't play multiplayer, you are missing. You didn't like the game. Someone else didn't like the game. You didn't like it because you played single player and it's boring. So for a lot of people, there is this culture that the multiplayer is the standard. Like it's single player with extra stuff. It's single player where the enemies are not AI or the NPCs that you play with. If you have an NPC helping you, I mean in Borderlands you go it's cooperative mostly. So there is this thing that if you play Borderlands, you play cooperative. So I am crazy that I played 700 hours, and most of them, except a few exceptions where I tried to play with a friend, but then we stopped, and then I continue playing single player. And it's not the lag, it's something else. More DLCs. What the hell? I never buy those DLCs. Those are extra pack. And I'll tell you what. We're not gonna see that. I don't see. Maybe it was my impression. It wasn't just the tutorial. In the tutorial you have messages, but those messages are the messages from the tutorial. In the single player game, once in a while you see a message, but there is a message in a place that tries to tell you something. But you might see 5 extra messages after the tutorial messages in the whole game, where it tells you, here is a new kind of secret. So it tries to teach you something, and it might tell you something with a riddle, so that it feels real. It's the developers' message. It feels like there is an actual message in the world, that some spirit tried to tell you something. But it's very rare. It's not in your face all the time, and it's not joke messages that have nothing to do with the game. This is destroying. No matter, I find this extremely funny. This is destroying the immersion for me. And you have the bloodstain. But I remember I started this game, a single player, and it was bloody pieces and message all over. It wasn't 3 minutes, it was like 15 messages and blood stains all over the place in a small area. And I'm like, what is this? I don't know why Dark Souls 3. I cannot run the other. I have uninstalled them. The reason I uninstall them is that if I install them, I'll start playing a game and it will never finish. Here you have the worst build I made. I try to make intentionally an awful build. I make a build with the whip. You cannot play with the whip. It's awful. You cannot play. Even if you upgrade it for extra damage, it's awful in many times. I'm this guy like an executioner with the whip. I made a fat guy with the whip. Yeah. And that's the thing, that I must be crazy. I put some notes there. Okay, I'll stop here. To make my point, there was such a move from multiplayer, from single player to multiplayer, that for a lot of people now it's standard. You cannot have a game. Even if you have a game that is exclusively single player, it has to have a multiplayer. And I might set some things here, it doesn't matter. This is not a very well prepared video. If you search that, okay, there was Zelda Breath of the Wild, the Nintendo Switch game. I haven't played it. I have it on my Switch. I rarely play on my Switch, unless it's some indie games like Spelunky and Dark Souls. Actually, the first Dark Souls. But I should have played it. It's just and there was when Nintendo made the Zelda Breath of the Wild, which was the first open world Zelda, possibly. People were, but you can call the original Zelda open world. The original Zelda was open world. Because you have a big map and you can go over. I don't know why they say, oh, Zelda finally becomes open world. Because it's a 3D world where you can go every. It wasn't restricted. In a sense, the original Zelda was open world. And even later Zelda games. And when they released it, it was single player. No multiplayer. And that was odd. You would see journalists. Now, someone made the mod. Someone made the mod to play. But is it a mod on the Wii U emulator? Possibly. Or or maybe if they hacked the Switch. I haven't seen. So you see articles about the. And there was an article that was like. I can find it. I'm so angry that Zelda World of the doesn't have multiplayer. And Nintendo was like, no, our game is single player focused, so we didn't make a multiplayer. And this was wild for people. It's like, how can a game in the year 2017, 18, when was it released? How can it not have multiplayer? How can any game not have multiplayer? And the other thing I noticed, Elden Ring is. I don't play this game. I think there is Last of Us multiplayer. There is Last of Us multiplayer. There is a multiplayer mode named Faction. But I don't like it. But there was. I think Uncharted. I mean, that's Uncharted. And I'm not saying it's bad, it's fun, but this game, Last of Us, which I couldn't get into, I tried to. Everybody talks about it, and I'm talking about the first one, I'm not talking about the second. I have at best I have a PS3 and then a PC and then older consoles. I haven't gone to newer consoles. This game is very single player focused, and other games I'm confident. Heavy Rain, that very. Okay, Heavy Rain doesn't have. People are searching. This is even less, even more story driven. Even less. It's almost like an adventure game, and people are searching for multiplayer. Do you want Monkey Island insult sword fighting? Maybe someone made a flash animation for that. Maybe they will make the Monkey Island with insult sword fighting, and they will make a multiplayer because people want multiplayer. Why do you want Heavy Rain multiplayer? Why do you want Last of Us multiplayer? These are not even, they are not even the single player games I like. People say single players are games are about story, and I'm gonna speak about that. And but those games are very close. They try to be movies. I don't enjoy them. I tried to start this one and I got bored because the single player action, the gameplay is very basic, very boring. Maybe there is some shooting of zombies, but very basic, and maybe some stealth, but with quick time events, like you press some button and you see some scripted animation. I mean, even Dark Souls, the backstabs are scripted, but that's fine because it takes effort to do backstab or parry and riposte, so it's different. Here it's like I'm showing the circle or the triangle of the controller, the button you have to press and you do it in many cases. So this thing I would never expect to have multiplayer, but I think it has. And there must be some other games that I, even on PC, I finished the single player experience. It was very single player. It wasn't some shooter, and there was a multiplayer, which was some gimmicky thing. I don't know, and I'm like, how does that have a multiplayer? Who plays Last of Us multiplayer? Everybody is playing, Call of Duty or Grand Theft Auto multiplayer, or whatever is more trending. Who would prefer? If you look for a single player, you will play a single player game. Maybe you like this story driven. Personally, I don't like this games moving more to be like games trying to be too much like movies, because it's very basic gameplay, a lot of quick time events, cinematics. I don't mind cinematic, but you are putting some fake quick time events to make me think that I did some spectacular thing. But that's the other thing. I started noticing that every game tries to have a multiplayer option. Even games that, but Skyrim doesn't have a multiplayer, is it? Such a big open world and it doesn't have a multiplayer. Okay, maybe they made it's a Nexus mode. It's not an official. Okay, maybe they added, or maybe that's the mod. It's something that people did for everybody. Was okay. I get it. What would it be if your favorite single player game had a multiplayer option? Wouldn't it be fantastic? Think of your favorite single player game. Think of a game in the past. I don't know. I was thinking about it. What? That's an obscure one. Amiga PC, it doesn't matter. Oh, that's on Steam. Downloadable content. I thought that was on Google only. Why is this on Steam? Now imagine you have your team. Now you cannot see the character. Those are the enemies. Actually, they were your friends unless you attack them. Imagine if you have a team of those guys. That was the game, the pure single player. Imagine someone making a multiplayer that this group, and that's a great screenshot I got, because that was I was thinking, how would it be if those four dwarfs here were another team, and they weren't enemies. And then there were another, and they were moving around. They were moving around the plane and slashing each other, or going together and slash a beholder. Okay. Imagine if in modern computer your classic favorite single player game was a multiplayer. Wouldn't you say, this is amazing? This is the most amazing thing. Why wouldn't someone not want this? Wouldn't you say that? And yet I insist. No, not necessarily. It would be great if you want it, fine, but that doesn't mean that everything has to be multiplayer. Because I notice a trend. People are like, why is the game? Why do you know? If you don't support multiplayer, it's like your game is still running in text mode. It doesn't have graphics. It's like you are playing Dark Fortress. The original version. I haven't played that one. It's like you are playing that thing, like the old games, And it's like, this is my game. Why don't you have graphics? This is how people feel about multiplayer. Which is bizarre because I'm trying to explain me here and I take time. And I noticed something. First of all, why sometimes I prefer single player? Because immersion. Because you play in these wonderful worlds and you want to be immersed alone. You don't want invaders popping up, messages all over. There are some worlds that have to be experienced alone. Even Borderlands, even it has great, especially the first one. People like the second and the later, but the first one it has the atmosphere, it has the tribal music, and you are alone in the desert and shooting skags and or being chased by skags. I don't know. It was a great world to explore at the time, and you were alone trying to discover some alien secrets. And you don't get bothered. You have the full immersion of the world. You don't get bothered by. I'm not saying it's bad. If you want to play multiplayer, fine, but that doesn't make the single player experience worse because it's multiplayer with less. And I know there are some things the multiplayer gives you that you cannot experience. We play a lot. We used to play, and that's a more multiplayer. We used to play Unreal Tournament. We went to someone's house with our computers and set up a LAN, or sometimes in a net cafe, internet cafe here in when I was in Greece. And this was made for it was Unreal Tournament. There was also Quake 3 Arena. So this was exclusively. There was a single player mode, but the single player mode you were just fighting the bots in the same arena. So it wasn't a single player experience. It wasn't like the original Unreal game. The original Unreal game was mostly single player experience. Maybe it also had multiplayer. I don't know. But this one was like, okay, you are getting the multiplayer. The focus is the multiplayer. It's not like we have single player and maybe some multiplayer, or as an afterthought, or multiplayer and some single player as an afterthought. And that was great because you could go, you say, okay, if I fight with bots, bots can become, they are very good, but can be predictable. If I fight with real players, especially with my friends, we had great fun. I know it's someone behind that avatar who is trying to mess up with me. Okay. It was a different experience. Yeah, I agree. Multiplayer has something magical that you don't get in single player. But it's the same thing as saying you have 2D games. Why am I posting that? You have 3D games. And someone would say, why is everyone ever playing 2D games? What's the point of playing 2D games anymore? When 3D is 2D games plus. It's one thing above. Why would you prefer to play 2D games? Why not making everything 3D? You see what I mean? Why do people read books when we have movies? See, people are asking it. And you might say, no, book has the whole content, but this is, it's like, no, this is different, this is an exception. But in your case of games, single player doesn't make any sense anymore. Because multiplayer, you are there, you are the single player. So you have the single player experience plus the multiplayer elements. So you are adding. It's like ice cream with extra cream. And the cherry on top. Yeah, but people prefer You know what I mean? This is you're making a justification that doesn't make sense, and I noticed that it's a thing. I noticed that. And another thing, if I play multiplayer, it's like I'm watching a movie, and I don't like that very much. I have gone to the cinema, I have watched movies with friends, but I don't enjoy it as much as immerse myself alone in my room in a movie or a video game. I don't prefer it. You try to, maybe the movie is really immersive when your friend is saying something funny or stupid, and I never complain. I never turn back to my friend and say, "Hey, stop! I'm watching." I would just haha, okay, he says something fine, but I don't prefer it. Do you understand now? One reason I prefer single player games. The other reason, but here there is a negative now. Why people like multiplayer games? This is an obvious question. Why wouldn't it? Why wouldn't they like? And most answers you get, why are video games so multiplayer focused now? The obsession with multiplayer. Some people see it as negative, okay. And there is a point. People enjoy multiplayer so much. Positive, positive, positive. The benefits. Oh my god, you are playing with your friend. You are so social now. Like you cannot just get out and see what you get. Why people like multiplayer? What's up with people who refuse to play multiplayer? What's wrong with people who refuse to play multiplayer? You know, it says about immersion. I might check that later, but there is positive immersion and negative immersion. Immersion. There is negative immersion because you try to play Dark Souls or something, and you might have this message. You might have some player popping up. Okay, but there could be some positive immersion from the sense that you are alone in this world, and there goes a player appears, and it's like an alien appeared from another world. You know, oh my god, what happened now? So yeah, I get why there might be a positive. I don't know if it mostly focus on the negative. So again, and then toxicity in multiplayer. I think that's bullshit. I don't get. This is insignificant. This is bullshit. This is not the reason. I have not seen. Why do people like single player games? I'm asking it, why do people like. I asked it why people like multiplayer games, and I got obvious. Of course, people are like, and all positives. And like, I got something that says, where was it? And one post was even, what's up with people who refuse to play multiplayer? I never got something like, why do people. What's wrong with people who refuse to play them? Why people like people like single player? It's good. It's you like single player. You ask something positive. Oh, why do you prefer single player? Anyone else? Am I the only weirdo, or anyone else here that prefers single player game? If you are prefer single player video games, you are not alone. You are not a virgin neckbeard loser. Gamer prefersion, despite the massive. Look at this article. The gamers, the rare specimen of gamers who only want to play with themselves. Such loners. We are moving to multiplayer. The future is that we have cloud computing. That's just one plenty of even in the age of everyone was alone. They were losers in their. There is this kind of explanation. I don't have time to go now, and the answers are bullshit actually, or maybe not so. You don't need to play. You don't play to get good at. This article is a bit crap actually. Talk to gamers over 30 and they will often be nostalgic for classic adventures like Secret of Monkey Island. Deus Ex is not an adventure game, and Final Fantasy, okay, it's an RPG. It's like, and see, the thing is, single player was about the story. Many times it wasn't about the story. Classic Doom. Now, why am I posting and I'm putting images? I don't know. You know Classic Doom. This is a great single player. It had multiplayer. It's one of the earliest ones that brought. And it was magical then because it wasn't the standard thing to be in the games. It was that extra thing that you could look at the Green Marine. Oh, that's another Green Marine movie. This person is the other person. I can't believe it. It's a human moving this thing on my game. So there was something magic and it was new. But it was the extra thing, the extra special. It wasn't the thing that made the game. And Doom didn't have a serious story, but maybe people might say, kind of like Dark Souls, the story was in the level design, it was on the. It presented the world and it let you fill the gaps. It didn't have extreme crazy cinematic. It wasn't Monkey Eye. That's an entirely different thing. I mean, it wasn't. It was 1% story and 99% game, but it had this immersive moments. Even the start was immersive with the 3D environment. You know, with the shadows, with the 3D environment at the time. 2.5D whatever. I would go slowly through corridors and I would be like, very carefully, oh my god, it's getting darker here. Maybe some trap will pop up. Maybe I will trigger a trap and something will happen. You were living through the maps. The maps had immersion. Do you understand? So you would, if you played the multiplayer, you say, yeah, that's cool, multiplayer is cool. And most people would, the best memories were the single player experience they had. That scary corner that had some monster jump at you, and then you were terrified for life or something. Do you understand? So it's not now we talk about single player and we think of Last of Us again, a picture of life, because that's the trending thing. The Last of Us, the Call of Duty, they throw Monkey Island because they don't know anything. Tell me a classic adventure game. Secret of the Monkey Island, another classic adventure game. Secret of the Monkey Island, that's the only thing they know. Okay. And oh, Deus Ex, which is it's everything. It's first person RPG stealth, story driven. It's not an adventure game. Half-Life could be that. Of course, it has multiplayer. The first Half-Life, it has that. It had that flow like a movie, but it was mostly action and with environmental design, like things in the environment that tell a story. In a way, some scripted, kind of scripted event. So there are stories here. Of course, there is always the story. Oh, the online, in relation to the online multiplayer shooters. Young men, always young men, okay. I mean, who else plays the game? Always, they want this mainstream media always want to say, oh, the sexist, racist, homophobic, blah, blah, blah. You know, if you don't like it, get out. Get out. Play your single player. I'm with you. I don't like most of the multiplayer stuff. Oh, the de-arrested, the going home and the telltale. Yeah, all of the walking simulations. Which I don't mind. I might like some of them as experiences, but you know, single player are to play retro game, to put a Super NES emulator or Commodore 64 or Amstrad CPC or whatever, and play those games. They didn't have story. They will have primitive graphics, and people play them. Why do people play retro game? Why wouldn't people? Why do you ask about single player? Why do you think single player is the fun? When people even play retro game and there is come back with the indie gaming. Why do you think? See everything. People are having self doubt. Am I the only one who prefers single player? Am I weird? Am I a loser? Am I a virgin who prefers single player? They didn't say like that, but it kind of implies that, I mean, this article, meet the gamers who don't want to play multiplayer. It's such sensational. Like, do you think the single player game? EA criticized for appearing to mock people who. Why do people play single player games? It's like, isn't that weird that people play single player games? And a lot of these answers are not. Does not require an internet connection to play, blah blah. Yeah, these are things too. I mean, it's the immersive. Is that you're playing something immersive? It is. I said it is as like I'm watching a. Actually, Black Mirror Bandersnatch. I've watched that one. If you know Black Mirror, the series, they make a film. I've watched it. It had a nice thing because it was about a programmer who's making a game in ZX Spectrum. I watched this on Netflix. I watched it with a friend. And the unique idea they tried, but it's an idea that was tried a few times in the past. As the movie was playing, I don't know, they were using interactive elements. So they made Netflix released the interactive series Minecraft Story Mode. So they made. So there are in Netflix there are movies where you watch the movie pauses, and you have an option, and maybe from your computer or your. I don't remember if you watch it on network search. No, we watched it on the laptop, and with some input. I don't remember what the input. Maybe from my keyboard or my mouse. I could select. Imagine you watch the movie and you can select what will happen next, and then you have to go back and check other stuff. I didn't like it. I didn't like it because I wanted to watch a movie. I lost the plot. I lost the flow. There were some funny, silly stuff that were happening. There were some options that changed the thing so much that you have seen something that makes absolutely no sense. Like there was a psychologist, female psychologist, talking to that guy, to the one of the programmers, the protagonist, and there were some options that were like breaking the fourth wall, like this is a Netflix conspiracy, blah blah blah, and then the psychologist chick put out some katanas and started fighting with this guy. There was something like that. I'm not making this up. Like you choose an alternative path, and that reveals a ridiculous scene. That makes nothing. So I was like, am I watching a movie? I prefer the old Black Mirror. Yeah, they experimented with something. See, it doesn't mean you could say, oh, that's the future of films. It's interactive, means you have the original, the non-interactive, plus with interactive elements. So it gets better. Why don't you like? Why do you prefer the single player? Why do you play the single player? Ah, yeah, and that goes that. Immersive stories, you get to play alone. Imagine if you watch a movie and then someone alters the thing and you don't, okay, I wanted to be immersed in a story. The story that the creator has to say. I don't want that to change. I'm doing that in single player game, but there I'm creating the story. Now with multiplayer, and see all these responses. I'm gonna say, at some point I did Elder Scrolls Online. So there is an Elder Scrolls. A lot of people ask for Elder Scrolls Online. I tried it in the early stage with a friend. We were running around trying to fight some enemies, and there were other people popping up. Okay. And it was a mess because you were immersed into something that there are silly little characters jumping around like crazy. Someone would fight an enemy and I will steal the enemy from that guy because there was a scorpion. I don't remember. So in this Elden Ring Online, I have a magic ability that was throwing a hook-like scorpion, and I was grabbing some enemy from afar and pulling it towards me. So there was some other multiplayer, other player, online player, fighting that enemy, and I'm coming. I was stealing his enemy, and he was like, "What the hell?" It's not immersive. It's fun. I'm not I'm not saying it's not good. I'm saying this is why I play like single player. But you ask that, and it's like it's always why they are more popular. Okay, I mean we know some answers, and you might say it's the normies that get into it, and video game companies like that. You have oh, it was here even. EA makes fun of single player games. They like that because they like some game that people can return, and if you finish the single player game, and there you need more effort to make a good single player game that will last for 60 hours or something. Anyone else hates single player game? They are a 10, but they only like a single player game. Yeah, I mean, maybe I made my point. You said it's about why people like single player. Eh? Because the games are designed to give you the one and only player the best experience. Does anyone else struggle playing single player game? Some people cannot. I mean, it's fine, but the thing is, I'm searching and I find negative articles that kinda painted that if you prefer single player games, you must be weird. You must be a loner. Sort of, okay, they don't say that you must be a loner, but they imply it's. Look, how can we design our single player game for retention? That's the thing. You see, that's the problem, economically speaking. That companies, like EA, they might prefer to make multiplayer game because first of all, you have microtransactions and DLC. You have all the normies going and playing multiplayer again and again and again and again, and coming back to the game. Well, a single player game, okay, especially if you make something like a movie that ends in 5 hours. The game is over and didn't have a serious gameplay because we want to make games like movies, and then it's over. People don't come back to that game, and they are not popular. I mean, I get it. I get it. There is the negative connotation that single player games are for nerds, and maybe they are. Because back in the days there wasn't such a thing as multiplayer, or it wasn't very common. I mean, there were uh, multiplayer online dungeons. Was it? This was before my time. Multiplayer real-time virtual world. They were text-based. That was in a time I never played any of them. Maybe from BBS bulletin board systems. So multiplayer was older than Doom or whatever. And that was magical. But it wasn't the thing that everything has to be like that. It was something different. And then very few people would play games. You were a nerd. You were uncool. You were an outcast. People weren't into games. You might say maybe now people are into games because it's multiplayer. You can play single player with you if you want to share the experience. Sometimes people would go. I went to my friend's place and we were playing in Super Nintendo Castlevania or something together. Maybe my friend was playing and I was watching and I was very immersed. I would go someone else, but I was very immersed. Can single player still be social? Look at those articles. Anyone else hates single player games? Is it okay to play a game by yourself? Okay, I guess you got it. There is something in the culture. I'm happy, but I guess the market won't be. If you make a game, if you make a really good single player game, and you're like, where is the multiplayer? There is no multiplayer. It's single player. What? How can it not be multiplayer? I designed it for single player. Also, you spend all the developing time, make it good for one thing. Not making the multiplayer an afterthought or the single player an afterthought. I'm wondering the witness. I need to play that again. We started from something that Jonathan Blow was playing Elden Ring. His video is very funny because he's playing very badly and he's complaining all the time about unbelievable. Like, dude, what are you doing? But okay, maybe it's not his. And I don't think if he stayed more, he would enjoy it because it's getting worse later. If you are not into it, it's getting worse. I don't think he added multiplayer. Yeah, see, the goodness is a single player game. What are you gonna do? You are. Unless someone made the mod. In this game, you are moving very slowly in this world. The walking speed is awkward in my opinion, but okay, it's a puzzle game. And you are looking at panels and solving puzzles. That's what you do. Are you gonna have two avatars looking at the same panel and sliding each other? Maybe you have to design it for multiplayer. I know that. I think Portal. They made a multiplayer Portal, and I think they design, and that makes sense. They design some maps. I haven't played the multiplayer. I still prefer the single player, and it could be fun because they designed some maps which you can't beat single player. That's what I have heard. Like someone has to shoot the portal while the other. You have to synchronize with you. I find that very awkward personally. I I like to have full control. Oh, I must be very fun at parties, and maybe that's why I don't have a girlfriend. Ha ha ha. Everywhere you could have Tetris. No, there is multiplayer Tetris with two. Yeah, and I think in Portal the multiplayer is very specifically designed. Different rooms that they designed so that help matters. Yeah, and it takes effort. So in Portal, it must have taken thought to design levels for multiplayer. There is always someone. I play this game which is made for single player. Why is it not cooperative? Everything. No, why is it not? And I bet neither Braid has multiplayer. What is the point of Braid game? Why doesn't it have multiplayer? Where is the multiplayer mode? Ah, they are joking. Capture the flag only. Imagine with the time mechanics, though, the time reversing mechanics, how would that even work? And that's it. That's it, guys. I installed Elden Ring, but maybe that was a mistake. I'm trying to stop playing too much Dark Souls. For some reason, I'm very addicted to the way these games play. I was playing Demon Souls on my PS3 for with several builds, and I'm not doing enough coding. I'm doing a bit, but not in the evenings. Instead, I'm playing more from software games, and so I installed this, but I'm not gonna run it. I promise. And I'm doing rant videos like this, and that's it. I think I have to finish now because now this is gonna be long again. I'm just shouting stuff and just using Google Map, Google Images to show stuff. So it's like the videos are not polished, but that's all I can do. I just want to run the video and, about things. I think single player is alive, and as I say, the retro gaming. Why is retro gaming alive? But it's these days. Is retro gaming dead? If retro gaming, which is a much more seems a much more primitive thing, is alive, why wouldn't single player be? Why would it be odd? I guess So the people who play multiplayer games don't play anything else. Are they just shooting each other in an arena and that's it? It's like you are restricting yourself in a very tight genre. There are all kinds of games. It's not even. It's like I would ask, why do people only play multiplayer shooters? Because usually that's it. Oh, I'm gonna. Anyone else here find it really hard to enjoy multiplayer? You don't see people asking that. You get other stuff. Sometimes Google might talk about the culture. So it goes again a Jonathan Blow. That's irrelevant with the video. I'm gonna finish with that. And he says, and maybe it's a joke, maybe it's over exaggerated. His remarks sometimes are very funny. I'm searching for Google Images frustration. Half of them have to do with computers. He's punching the monitor. She's in front of the computer on the laptop. Why doesn't it work? In front of the laptop, the computer. Why doesn't it work? Okay, here is someone with a car. Actually, not half of them, but there are enough images with computer. And Jonathan Blow was like, uh, that shows you the fact that I searched for frustration in Google. Actually, his result had more computers. It means something is very wrong with the software we're using with the computer. Everything is slow, nothing works. So it goes like that. It was so funny. Anyway, guys, I stop now. I stop it. That was enough, and it's long again, but fine. I'll see. I'll see if I'll post some coding video or something else before the end of the week. Probably not, but